Hello and welcome to everyone. I want to say special thanks to Cage Warriors middleweight champ Matthew Bonner for accepting to be our guest again. So Matthew, this is a big step up in your career. I mean, winning Cage Warriors title, especially considering how strong Cage Warriors middleweight division is, probably the strongest division on the whole roster. So how are you feeling about it? Did the dust settle right now? How are you at the moment? How is your family life doing?
Yeah, I'm good. It's kind of I'm very relieved. Obviously, relieved that I've managed to win. It was a tough fight. It was always going to be a tough fight, I think, with Frederick. But I think you underestimate how intense the guy is when you're in there with him. He does want to do some real damage. But in terms of how I feel now, I've got the belt. Like I say, it's a massive relief, and I'm pleased to be a world champion.
Well, that's a pretty much great to hear. So, how were you preparing for Nathias Frederick battle, and which was the ultimate part of your game plan to defeat Nathias Frederick, considering he is probably the strongest striker in the whole division? He was my second interview, so I know a lot about the guy. Very great guy.
Yeah, it was a tough one in terms of the game plan because, I mean, if you say the fight before Frederick was a fella called James Webb. So we knew James Webb was going to come in and be a grappling fight. And so you kind of counter that with takedown defense and strikes. With Frederick, he's a little bit more well-rounded. He's strong on the cage. He throws, big damaging shots, big powerful shots. So the game plan from my end really was just, it was all going to be about adjusting as the fight progressed. And that's generally what happened. I kind of went in there in the intention of maybe striking a little bit more. And then again, when you see the intensity of the guy and him throwing these big shots, it was just easy to take it down, avoid the damage on the feet. And as soon as I took him down, I realised how much of an advantage I did have on the ground and figured that was going to be the game plan from then on.
How did you escape the damage from his punches? His left hook knocked out Richardson, correct me if I'm wrong. Was it a right or left? I think it was left.
It was a left, yeah. It was a right hook and a left hook, yeah. It was a left hook that finished. It's a funny one, this, because everyone always says how tough I am and how durable I am, but generally, if you kind of watch my fights, I don't really take that much damage. There weren't many shots from Frederick, even on the ground and pound, which again looks quite vicious, that actually made contact with my face. It was more shots that kind of came off the forearms, came off the hands. Again, it was kind of a very heavily grappling-based fight, so I avoided most of the stand-up. So generally, I didn't really take the big damaging shots that, say, Jamie Richardson did or even James Webb did when those two fought twice prior. There was generally no shots that got through that kind of rocked me or wobbled me or anything like that. I had a few two black eyes the day after, but apart from that, it was all just bumps and bruises. There was nothing, no real damage.
As of now, did somebody tell you that you kind of remind of right-handed Cyril Gane in the stand-up?
Say that again. What's the guy's name?
Did somebody tell you that you kind of remind in the stand-up of a right-handed version of Cyril Gane?
I've not heard that, but I guess it's a nice compliment. Yeah. I would have liked to show my stand-up a little bit more in the fight. That generally was the idea first. I wanted to test my stand-up. I put quite a lot of effort into my stand-up prior to the fight. But again, when you're in there and he's throwing these big wild shots, it was just safer and more sensible to take him down to the mat.
Well, I made a comparison because Alexander Volkov is probably the hardest hitter in UFC heavyweight division, and Cyril Gane's plan was to move his head, not to let Volkov hit him hard, because as well as you know, Volkov is a master of last-minute knockouts, so especially with Cyril Gane. So did it had something to compare with your strategy against Nathias?
It was with the strategy when Nathias was very much his research on his previous fights. It was, in fact, I watched quite a lot of the first Stipe and Ngannou fight as well. I kind of saw Frederick as Ngannou in terms of he's throwing these big shots. You had Stipe, he was ducking and diving and taking him down. That was a fight that I kind of showed quite a lot of interest in before the Frederick fight. But again, I did want to do a little bit more stand up. I think if I fought Frederick again, I think I'd test his stand up a little bit more. But I was pleased to kind of not take too much damage and, again, just have two black eyes and not a broken jaw and be knocked out and have a concussion and whatnot. It just seemed like the more sensible tactic to to follow through on when I'm in there, trying to not get filled in.
How's your training camp looking at the moment?
I've just kind of got back into training now. I started on Monday. I had 2 weeks off, which is usually a week longer than I normally take off. I normally have a week off and I jump in, but there was a few kind of injuries and stuff. Not from the Frederick fight, but kind of the training camp. I had a back injury, I had a knee injury. So I'm kind of just looking after them at the moment and seeing what I can and can't do. There is another Cage Warriors in September. That's just been announced. I would hope to be on that, but again, it is going to be about managing these injuries and seeing what happens. I fought 4 times in 10 months, which is a big schedule for most. Most still fight 3 in 12 months. So we'll see. Again, I love to fight, I love to train, but I have to be a lot more sensible now. Now there's such an awful lot to lose. I don't want to lose the belt, and I certainly don't want to lose it because I've gone in with these little niggles and injuries.
Did they offer you an opponent for your potential 185 title defense?
No, nothing's been announced at all yet, but it's still early days. I kind of have a feeling it'll probably be kind of Kent Cockman or something like that, or I don't think they'll have me rematching Frederick again just because I did get a finish. But we'll see. I tend to think the middleweight division in Cage Warriors needs to kind of organise itself a little bit. There's no real kind of number one contender that jumps out. Well, James Webb was on a good run and he got beat. Matt Inman, I beat him last. Obviously, Frederick got finished in 4 rounds by myself. So I think the kind of division needs to kind of fight each other, sort themselves out, and then this number one contender can come forward, and that can be my first title defense.
Is there some aspect of your game that you plan to work on in the next few months, especially?
I want to work on my takedown entries. I'm kind of very confident on the cage in terms of getting someone to the cage and taking them down. I think that's probably one of the best parts of my game. But I think if you look from the Frederick fight, there's quite a lot to be desired in terms of getting hold of them and dragging them to the cage. I think I shot like 10, 15 times, which isn't very good. You want to shoot twice maybe and taking down and be a bit more effective with your takedowns. But my takedowns were quite poor. I tired quite a lot in the later rounds because of the failed takedowns. So I'm kind of working on the takedown entries and getting people down to the mat without wasting so much energy.
Well, from what I've seen, Nathias Frederick showed excellent takedown defense against James Webb, especially in the first fight so, but in the second fight, he was sprawling every single time. I think Webb dragged him to the ground once or twice only in the second.
He's got a strong sprawl. I was surprised how strong his sprawl was, and like you mentioned, he's a very big guy. He's quite thick, again, strong, powerful guy. So it's not easy getting that guy to the mat. But I felt when I did take him down and when I could pin him, there was no real feedback. It's almost like he'd not given up, but he kind of just lay there and let me do what I wanted. I mounted. I took his back. I was ground and pounding at some points. So the initial takedown is very difficult, but once you get past that takedown defense, it's pretty simple from there. To be fair.
How many Cage Warriors title defenses is required to get a chance in, let's say, a stronger promotion?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, Jack Cartwright's defended his Cage Warriors title 3 times, and then there's guys who haven't defended the title and then have gone on to the UFC. I think it's very much what the UFC are after. If they're lucky, if they've got kind of, let's say, the middleweight division in the UFC it's very strong, but say in this example it's not. Say they're looking for fresh blood or whatever, then they'll snatch up someone straight away. But if they've got a really strong middleweight division, which I would think that the UFC have got a really strong middleweight division, I think they can you'll have to prove yourself a little bit more for them to send you a contract. So it very much depends. And I think it very much depends on if the UFC is coming to London in September. If there was a middleweight fight there and maybe one of the guys pulled out, that maybe I might get a shout out, and that might be an opportunity to get a contract sorted out. But generally, in terms of defences, it's 1 to 3 defences, and you'll usually be going to the UFC.
Yeah, that's true, but Bellator's middleweight defense is also pretty good.
Yeah, I kind of say the UFC because Cage Warriors is it's got that kind of well-trodden path to get to the UFC. Obviously, Cage Warriors is on UFC Fight Pass. Graham Boylan, who's the president of UFC, the president of Cage Warriors, has a really good relationship with the UFC. So generally, the Cage Warriors champions or the Cage Warriors contenders will go to the UFC because of the relationship that Cage Warriors have got to the UFC. But I guess there is opportunities to go to Bellator or PFL or any of the other, the big organizations abroad.
What are your plans for the next few months, maybe outside of training?
I'm getting married in October. So yeah, I'm getting married in early October to my fiance, obviously. So get married and maybe have a little holiday somewhere. We've not really organised anything, but just have maybe a weekend off or a weekend where we can, dip off somewhere and enjoy ourselves. But apart from that, I'm going to be coaching. I own my own gym with my twin brother, so I'll be coaching MMA and trying to build up some of my lads, or hopefully maybe get them out fighting soon once COVID disappears and more promotions open up. But apart from that, training as usual and enjoying life as much as I can.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Would you like to give a shout out to somebody, or would you maybe like to read somebody, to mention somebody?
I say thanks to all my training partners at Next Gen, at the gym that I train at. I say thanks very much to my coaches and my twin brother. I say thanks to all my sponsors for supporting me during camp as well. And thanks to yourself for having me on again.
Thank you so much. Hope to see you all next time. I hope there will be more successful title defenses. Have a great day. I will publish this tomorrow.
Thank you, buddy. See you then. See you soon.
Thank you, Matthew. Have a great day.